Hey everybody, Justin Dunaway here with the Institute of Clinical Excellence, and today I want to talk a little bit about prognosis. First off, quick shout out to Physical Therapy of Tulsa and Ian and Helen and all the awesome people out there who brought me in over the weekend for total spine thrust manipulation. Awesome crew, had an absolute blast. So huge thank you to everybody out at PT of Tulsa. Had an absolutely awesome weekend. All right, let's dive into today's topic. Why my prognosis is always hell yes. And I'm not talking about, I have a moderate prognosis that in 6 weeks John will meet these 3 goals or whatever. I'm talking about when the patient walks in the door, how strongly do I believe that we're going to make a significant change? And the answer for me is always things are going to be different when this session, or when we're through this plan of care. And there's a couple reasons why. And to be honest right up front, we don't always know if the prognosis is going to be good, right? We don't know what's going to happen. We can believe that things are going to change. We can hope things are going to change, but we don't always know. But we have to believe, or our prognosis always has to be yes. And here's why. I got three main reasons why I think about prognosis in this way. The first one, hope drives behavior. Say that one more time. Hopes drive behavior. So, I'm going to frame kind of each of these 3 things around different studies, but we're going to start with this first one, hope drives behavior. So, fun study I read a couple weeks ago from Torrens in 2019 called, Do We Really Allow Patients Decision-Making in Rotator Cuff Surgery? Now, I'm not a big proponent of surgery, and I'm certainly not in the business of selling patients into surgery. I think they do really well with conservative management in many, many cases. But this is an interesting study that shows how altering patients' hope changes decision-making, changes behavior. Right? So the way this study worked is they took 80 patients that had diagnosed rotator cuff tears, and they split them into 2 groups, and each group got one question. Group 1, or Group A, got this question. Your doctor informs you that you have a rotator cuff tear and states that if he or she surgically repairs your cuff, you will improve and that cuff will remain healed at the 2-year follow-up in 71% of the cases where surgery is done. They called this the benefit informed. They focused on the positive. 71% of the time, this thing is still going to look good in 2 years. Or Group B, I said, your doctor informs you that you have a rotator cuff tear, and if he or she surgically repairs that cuff, you will improve, and that cuff will tear again at the 2-year follow-up in 29% of the cases where surgery is done. So this is the side effect informed. The numbers are the same. 71% it's not going to tear, 29% it is going to tear. What are you going to do? Yes or no? All right, if you were in Group A, if they focused on the piece of information that drew positive hope, 84% of the patients said, yeah, let's do that surgery. In the group that the hope was affected, that they had a negative hope, that they focused on the fact that this thing could tear again, only 46, half of the patients, 50% less, said, yeah, let's do the surgery. Everybody else was a hard no. Now again, I'm not about the surgery, but what I think is really interesting in this study is that the stats are the same, but it was the way the information was presented. Did we capitalize or leverage positive hope? Or did we take a little bit of that positive hope from the surgery away? If the hope was there, it drove decision-making, it drove compliance, it pushed the patient to do the thing that we felt they needed them to do. All right, hope drives behavior. You're going to hear me say it in every course I teach, expectations or beliefs and expectations are the foundation that outcomes are built on. So number 2 here is expectations drive outcomes. A couple of studies here done in 2013. I know I talked about this one on a previous PT on Ice a while back, but looking at full thickness rotator cuff tears, large N, and they found that 75% of people with full thickness rotator cuff tears who got 6 to 12 weeks of conservative management went on to not need surgery, was back to normal, was feeling awesome. 25% of cases failed the conservative management, and when they went back in and looked at those cases, 25% are the ones that failed. The largest independent predictor of failure was an expectation that physical therapy wasn't going to be effective. How is physical therapy going to grow back my rotator cuff tear? I had a patient ask me that once. So negative expectations was the largest independent predictor of whether these people were going to fail conservative management. And that's in the shoulder. We've seen it in the neck. Bishop had this great multi-center trial. He took a bunch of patients with neck pain. You either got manipulation and exercise or exercise, ran the study. 43% of patients got better regardless of what treatment arm they were in. And they had this huge belief and expectation questionnaire on the front end. One of the things was, how confident are you that you're going to get better? Do you expect complete relief of your symptoms? Moderate? A little bit of relief? No change? Do you feel like you're going to get worse? If you checked the box that said, I expect complete pain relief, you had a 75% chance, regardless of treatment arm, of a positive outcome, when across the board it was only 43. So you had a significant increase in success rates. If there was another question, if you check the box that says, at the end of this study, I believe I'm going to be able to exercise more, you had 11 times the odds of success at 6 months than everybody else. Expectations of a positive outcome drive positive outcomes both in the short term and in the long term. Eklund, in a study looking at back pain, this was a fun one I read recently too, looking at back pain, everybody got kind of the same treatment, but what they did is they looked at everybody's outcomes and they had one question. It was from 0 to 10. How confident are you that you're going to get considerably better following this treatment? 0, no better. 10, significantly better. For every 1 point on that 10 scale, it corresponded to a 9% increase in odds of success with the treatment. Again, expectations of positive outcome drive positive outcomes. The last one, beliefs shape physiology. Beliefs shape physiology. We've got a lot of really interesting research coming out now looking at mindset and how mindset shifts all kinds of things. It shifts cortical activation, it shifts neuroplasticity, it shifts cortisol, it shifts hormonal release, it shifts immune function, it shifts all these cardiovascular function, it shifts all this cool stuff. But a really interesting study in 2017, Zart, called Perceived Physical Activity and Mortality. They went into this huge patient database that they're like a study database, and they're tracking all these metrics of older adults over a 20-year period. And what they did with the data is they pulled everything out, and they put people in groups based on activity level. And then they asked them within that group, do you believe that you exercise as much as your peers? Do you believe you exercise less than your peers? Do you believe that you exercise more than your peers? Now, holding exercise constant. So we just looked at the people that were doing the same amount of stuff during each week and compared the people that said, I exercise less than my peers, to the people that say, no, I'm nailing it. I'm doing more than my peers. And remember, they're all doing the same amount. If you check the box that says, I'm doing less than my peers, if you believed that the stuff that you were doing day in and day out wasn't good enough, you had a negative belief about your lifestyle, even though that it was the same. That negative belief corresponded to you were 70% more likely to die during the follow-up period over the next 20 years than the people that said, I'm doing more than everybody else. And again, everything else was held constant. Beliefs shape physiology. There's another beautiful study that looks at hospitality workers, and they measure cardiovascular function and BMI and blood pressure and all this stuff, and they split them into two groups, and the first group gets a 30-minute video on just like workplace safety and whatever, and the second group gets this awesome video on how their job is physical activity day in and day out. Just by coming to work, they're getting like 9 hours of good solid exercise that's awesome for their body and super healthy. They come back 4 weeks later and check the two groups. In the group that got that video, the positive belief video, they had better cardiovascular function, better blood pressure, better BMI, better numbers, better physiology. Nothing else was different. Beliefs shape physiology. So when I'm thinking about prognosis, I'm thinking about these three things. I'm thinking about hope, expectations, and beliefs, and how strong an effect they have on decision making, on outcomes, and on our patient's literal makeup, the physiology of the stuff that's happening in front of us. But where it gets tricky is this. It has to be real. When I'm selling you on my belief, on my hope, on my hell yes, your things are going to be different during this plan of care, patients have to believe that I believe. Really cool study that came out in the end of 2019 by Chen called Socially Transmitted Placebo Effects. And they ran a couple different studies kind of within the study, or a couple different trials within the study. But basically what they did is it was experimental pain studies where the experimenter would go into the room and give a dose of pain, thermal pain, to the patient. And they had physicians deliver the experiment. Physicians deliver the pain, or physicians deliver the control. And they didn't mess with patient expectations. But what they did is, in the other room before the physician went in, they messed with physicians' expectations. Maybe they tweaked how much the thermal pain was going to be that the patient or the physician believed. This is going to be a high level. This is going to be a low level. This is the control, so nothing's going to happen. This is a positive. This is a negative. Messed with the physician's expectations. And then the physician went in the room and delivered the experiment, and the physician's expectations significantly changed the patient's pain experience. The physician thought it was going to be a lot of pain. The patient had a lot of pain. The physician thought it was going to be less pain. The patient had less pain. If the physician thought it was the control, the patient picked up on different facial expressions than when the physician thought it was the actual treatment. Long story short, was what they found in the study is that the physician's expectations changed the patient's pain. The physician's expectations changed the physician's subtle facial expressions, and the patients picked up on it. The patients, these changes in expectations not only changed the physician or the patient's pain, but it also changed the patient's belief or perception of the physician's level of empathy towards them. Patients pick up on our subtle body stuff, our cues, our voice, our eyes, our body language. So when we're thinking about leveraging hope, when we're thinking about leveraging expectations, when we're thinking about leveraging beliefs, it's more than just the words. It's the actions, it's the energy, it's the empathy, it's how we say it, it's how we believe it. We have to believe the stuff that we're saying for the patients to believe the things that we're saying. Does that make sense? So, at the end of the day, when I'm thinking about this, when the patient walks in the door, does not matter what's going on. If I'm going to treat this patient, I have to believe that I'm going to make a difference. Because if I don't believe, if I don't have any hope that we're going to make some significant changes, you're going to pick up on that as a patient. And a clinician that doesn't believe in the patient, a clinician that doesn't have hope, a clinician that doesn't have positive expectations, doesn't leave any room for the patients to have hope. Doesn't leave room for the patient to believe in themselves. Doesn't leave room for the patient to have positive expectations, or to shift those expectations over time, or to have hope that they have the ability to change. And a patient without hope, with negative expectations, with maladaptive beliefs, is a patient that doesn't have a foundation to elicit change. So, one of the things that I challenge all of you to work on is going into every session, every patient encounter, every evaluation with the prognosis already set in your head. Before you even meet the patient, this is going to be different. We're going to make a change. We're going to make this patient believe in themselves. We're going to drive them to a place of better health, of better fitness, of better personal awareness, of better beliefs, of better expectations. Because the better we can get at that, the much better we set the stage to actually make positive gain in the clinic. All right, awesome. That's all I got. Thank you for listening, everybody. And be sure to check out tomorrow's episode, and have an awesome week in the clinic.
Hey, thanks for tuning in to the PT on Ice Daily Show. If you enjoyed this content, head on over to iTunes and leave us a review. And be sure to check us out on Facebook and Instagram at the Institute of Clinical Excellence. If you're interested in getting plugged into more ICE content on a weekly basis while earning CEUs from home, check out our virtual ICE online mentorship program at ptonice.com. While you're there, sign up for our Hump Day Hustling newsletter for a free email every Wednesday morning with our top 5 research articles and social media posts that we think are worth reading. Head over to ptonice.com and scroll to the bottom of the page to sign up.